Hello again. As you can see, I'm still wearing my cycle racing shirt, so I'm still going to be talking about cycle racing. And this is just a little addition to the previous video that I have just done in regard to my cycle racing exploits as a teenager. One part of my cycle racing that I didn't talk about, mainly because I didn't want to go on too long, was that I didn't actually mention my track cycle racing. Now, track cycling is in many ways the most exciting form of cycle racing. It's also the most dangerous, which of course makes it the most exciting. And you cycle around a short bowl with steeply banked corners. Usually it's an oval shape, and both ends of the oval are steeply banked, sometimes as much as 50 degrees. And in Europe, once again, it's a very big sport, and it takes place most of the time indoors on banked wooden cycle tracks, such as you see in the Olympics or some of the other big sporting events. But there are also outside cycle tracks, which of course are usually used only in the summer. And that's what we did. During the summer, when I was cycle racing, usually, I think every 2 weeks, we would go over to Alexandra Park in Portsmouth and race on this cycle track that was a blacktop with fairly steep bankings, and all the local cycle racers would turn up there and use, and some of them were specialized in track cycling. These were the out-and-out sprinters and people like that, and many of the road racers, which is basically what I was interested in, used to like to go track cycling because it was good training. Plus, of course, it sharpened up your sprinting speed, because most of the track races, in fact all of the track races at some point during the race, involve flat-out sprinting for the line. And so that was very exciting. Track bikes are wonderful in their simplicity. They are literally the bare bones cycle. They have, of course, two wheels, and the pedals are connected to the rear wheels just like an ordinary bike with a chain, but you cannot freewheel. They have what's called a fixed wheel, so when the back wheel turns, the pedals turn. You can't take a rest and stop pedaling and just glide. There's no gliding. Your control of the bike is actually through the pedals. There are no brakes, no gears. The bikes are very light, and you have the tires pumped up to, you have very light tires, and you pump them up to ridiculous pressures, and the bikes just roll like crazy, and it's great fun and very exciting. But of course, there's quite a lot of pushing and shoving going on coming into the finishing line, and people trying to get through on the inside where there's not room and this kind of thing. So it's very exciting, and not without its dangers. I was quite an interesting addition to the track cycling in Portsmouth. Not because I was particularly good, because I don't have the build, I don't have the out-and-out strength required for a really good track cyclist. But I was a bit on the reckless side, which I suppose is, some people might say that was a characteristic of my personality. But anyway, and on one occasion I can remember I had an unfortunate crash. It was coming into the end of a 5-mile race, which usually the track meets would end up with a long race, which would be a 5-mile race or something like that. And these races were very fast and furious, largely because every third lap, the last person to cross the finishing line was eliminated. So every third lap there was a sprint for the line, and people were jostling in the group not to be the last across the line. Now, this type of race was called Devil Take the Hindmost, and they were great fun and very exciting. And my tactic was, because I was not one of the really strong cyclists, was I'd sit in the middle of the bunch, and everybody's riding very close together, inches apart, and leaning on each other, and this kind of thing. And it's very exciting. And I would be in the bunch and try not to be pushed to the back, and then I would often, I couldn't beat the outright sprinters in an outright sprint, so I used to do what was known as taking a flyer. And how this works is that coming with 2 laps to go, the top sprinters and the guys who actually think they have a chance of winning often back off a little bit, slow down a little bit in order to conserve their energy for the finish, and in order not to be leading with 200 meters to go, because if you're leading a cycle race with 200 meters to go, there's 2 or 3 guys tucked in behind you, getting the effects of you towing them along in your slipstream. And so if you're leading with 200 meters to go, there's going to be 2 or 3 guys sitting behind you just waiting for the 50-meter mark to come up, when they'll pull out and whiz by you. And of course you've used all your energy by being at the front. So often with the 2 laps to go, everybody will ease up a little bit, trying not to be in the lead. And so I would, at this point, I would be dropped off the back 20 or 30 meters, and as everybody slowed up in order to jostle for the right finishing position, I would give her everything I had and come roaring past the slowing down bunch, going flat out, and try to take everybody by surprise and get far enough out the front that they actually couldn't catch me. And this used to work quite well, and it wouldn't work in the top echelons of the sport, but at the level we were cycling, it sometimes worked quite well, and it was really the only chance I had of winning the races. And I did win a few like that, much to the annoyance of the guys that I caught napping. But on this one particular evening, I took a pretty good flyer and was coming with a lap to go. I was overtaking everybody and coming roaring by, but there were there was quite a lot of riders on the track, about 30 I think, too many actually, considering the space available. And I got past almost everybody, and coming into the last bend, I was approaching 3rd position and going pretty good. There were a couple of guys ahead of me, and I was gaining on them. And they were riding neck and neck and sprinting for the line with elbows out to try and stop anybody coming by, and I was gaining on them, and I realized that if I tried to go around the outside, which was the safe route, I wouldn't be able to get by them by the line. So I tried to push my way between these 2 guys. As I said, I had a tendency to be a little reckless, and anyway, my handlebars got caught up in their saddles or bikes or whatever, something or other. Anyway, I tried to push my way through, and they wouldn't give way, and we collided, and the next thing I knew, I was sailing through the air upside down. You know, as I said, the banking was quite high, so I was sailing through the air upside down, having done a complete flip somersault. And I can remember to this day looking back upside down at the front of these group of 25 or so riders hurtling down the home straight, the finishing straight, and I was upside down, and of course in those kind of accident situations one's mental faculties speed up enormously, which has the effect of slowing everything down. So I can remember sailing slowly through the air upside down, looking back into the faces of these other cyclists who were slowly like backing off the pedals and trying to slow down, and with looks of surprise and amazement on their faces. And anyway, I sailed through the air and thinking, uh-oh, this is not good. And then there was a big purple flash, and I woke up in hospital. And that was interesting. But when I woke up in the hospital, I actually felt pretty good. I felt really relaxed and well slept and everything. I was kind of bound up because apparently I'd broken my collarbone and stuff, and I had a bandage around my head. And anyway, this rather charming young nurse came in after a little while and said, "Oh, you're awake," you know. And I had an oxygen cylinder and things, and I realized what had happened, and I was a bit nervous that I'd probably caused a crash, which probably resulted in not just me being in hospital, but I was told with a certain feeling of relief that in fact I was the only one who'd crashed, and apparently everybody else had managed to avoid me. and I'd been unconscious for 36 hours, which was, you know, interesting. I felt great, apart from the fact I was trussed up like a chicken with my collarbone and that kind of thing. And anyway, I was in hospital a week and made a reasonable recovery, and I had a bit of a knee injury too, where I whacked my knee and stuff. And anyway, the really funny part of all that was that when I got home, my mother had been away for a few days, and when she'd returned, she realized I wasn't home. My mother was very relaxed in her attitude, which was great. But when she returned from her being away, staying with friends, I wasn't home, and so I showed up a couple of days later with my arm in a sling and walking with a stick and stuff. And she said, "Oh, you know, my goodness, what happened to you?" You know, and I said, "Well, actually, I've been in hospital for a week. Didn't you see the papers? Because there was quite a big headline on the sports page about this cyclist who crashed and was unconscious for quite a while and stuff. And anyway, I recovered, and by the end of the season, I was back racing on the track, and it didn't stop me being reckless. And if there was any brain damage, I'm not in a position to judge because anyway. So that was my track cycling days efforts, which were mainly, as I say, I mainly used them for training and for getting personal excitement. They're talking about building an indoor cycle track in Edmonton, which would be wonderful if they do that. I will definitely start riding on that, but I don't think I'll do track racing. I'm not sure how quickly my bones would knit back together if I started doing reckless stuff again. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that my track cycling efforts, because the memory stays with me, such as they were, and track cycling is very exciting. I like watching it at the Olympics, and I'm happy to say Britain, which is my country of origin, the UK, have got some very, very good cyclists. They're probably the strongest track cycling nation in the world. Plus, Canada also has a world championship, a woman world champion, Tara Whitten. I think she comes from Edmonton. I'm not absolutely sure of that, but anyway, so Canada's doing well on the track as well internationally. So these, in the coming Olympics in London, I recommend that everybody tune in to watch the track cycling, because it's very exciting and in many ways the purest form of cycle racing there is. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention my not particularly illustrious days on the track. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.